Chuuk, previously known as Truk, is in the Central Pacific, part of the FSM and thus part of the U.S. Compact of Free Association. Like the rest of the Compact countries, the Japanese controlled the island after World War I, and during World War II it was considered the most formidable of all their Pacific strongholds, known to the Allies as the Gibraltar of the Pacific. The Japanese had built trenches, bunkers, caves, airstrips, and communication centers, which were protected by coastal defense guns. But the U.S. launched an early morning naval air attack against the Japanese on February 17, 1944. The attack, called Operation Hailstone, or Japan's Pearl Harbor, was successful, ending Truk as a threat to the Allies and giving the U.S. a new platform to help them advance further toward Japan. As a result of Operation Hailstone, Chuuk Lagoon became the biggest graveyard of naval ships in the world.
Today we went snorkeling in the Truk Lagoon right off from the island of Hwani, which is in the Federated States of Micronesia. While we were snorkeling, we saw many sunken Japanese ships that were sunk during World War II. These ships were sank in the year 1944 in Operation Hailstone, in which the United States bombed the Japanese fleet here over a 2-day period and sank 60 ships. And in the brief amount of time we were snorkeling today, we saw actually quite a number of these sunken ships. And being here on the island of Hwani in the Truk Lagoon, it means a lot to me because I know my father was stationed on Truk during World War II. It is possible, because my father was a Corsair pilot, was in the Marines in World War II, that he did participate in Operation Hailstone, which was over a 2-day period. Like a lot of people who returned from the war, he didn't really talk about it. So, but it still means a lot to me to have been, here where he was many, many years ago.
Chuuk Lagoon is now a diver's and adventurer's paradise. This tiny island in the middle of the lagoon is available for rent for those who want to be totally isolated.
Yes, I am a local Chuukese.
You're born and raised here?
Born and raised here in Chuuk. Well, yes, of course, there's no place like home. Typically, if you're outside, you have to pay for a lot of, higher rental payment for housing and all that. However, if you live here, you live on your own land, and all you have to do is loan some money, build your own house, pay up that loan, and the house is there for you, so you don't have to pay for anything. All you have to do is pay for electricity. And sometimes with the water, a lot of people are now using government water supply, but yet a lot of people are still using water catchment from rainwater. So you actually don't have to pay for water utility bills, things like that. Of course, the fishing is one of the best delicacy in the islands. People go out and do fishing, and octopus, lobsters, crabs, of course, tuna fish, reef fish. Back then in the old days, a lobstick is something very handy with the male. So technically what the male does during the day, they would each carve their own, what they call a lobstick. The woman will be walking around during the days looking at the men carving their lobsticks. The man will poke in the lobstick into where the girl is sleeping. And then this is when the girl, of course it's dark because they don't have any lights, electricity back then. So the girl will touch the lobstick by just feeling the way, the shape of it, by remembering which man she actually wanted during the day when she was walking around and these men were carving the lobsticks. So if she thinks that this is the right person that she's going to accept, she will pull the lobstick in to the natural fan, meaning to the outside person, the male outside, that yes, I do accept you. Otherwise, if she rejects him, she will push it back out. So that's how the lobstick came about.
Like they would just, like back in the days, they used those lobstick to But now we have cell phones, meet me here somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Up in the mountains or...
With the advent of concrete homes and cell phones, the love stick is no longer in use, replaced by text message and secret rendezvous. But many of the traditional roles still exist today.
My cousin up there, she's a girl. She saw me driving and she sat down outside by the road.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's our culture that if a man is standing and his sister is coming by, the man has to stand up or the girl has to sit down. Basically, I went to school in Oregon for 11 years, high school there and a little college. Moved back. No, most people go out there for school, but then they end up working and just live there.
The people from here?
From Chuuk.
So a lot of people do stay in the States?
Yes, they stay in there and live there. Instead of going to school and they just work. That's what I keep telling people that want to move out there. It's like, if you go out there, you won't save any money, because it just goes to bills. Here, if you have a job, then you can at least save some, because the food you just pick from the tree and go out in the water and fish.
The compact country's citizens have the right to live and work in the U.S. mainland, but are not residents or citizens of the U.S. Yet Chuuk is one of the poorest countries in the far Pacific, having a reputation for crime and violence. Tourists are told to be vigilant and never go out after dark.
Alcohol is the main problem here in Chuuk, because even if happy people drink, because they don't know how to drink. People here don't know how to drink, like they don't know how to control their alcohol. Once they're drunk and they come out on the street, start yelling for no reason.
So they get mean.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. He's fighting that girl. All right, man, let's get out of here. How did they beat him up? Come on, people. She's pissed. Maybe it's her brother or something. Wow, we saw a little ruckus here in what's considered one of the dangerous islands.
Our guide drove us deep into the country, first stopping at the old lighthouse, which was completed by the Japanese in 1940 and was still in use until being attacked by the U.S. in World War II. And finally, we drove on to one of the best high schools in the entire Central Pacific, Xavier High School.
Most of the leaders here in the FSM graduated from Xavier. The president of the nation graduated from Xavier High School.
As you enter the campus, you see the school motto, which is, in Latin, ut omnes unum sint, which is to say, that all may be one. That's from John's Gospel, chapter 17, verse 21. And obviously, that's got a message for Christians and for the whole world. But specifically for Micronesia, it's about bringing all the island groups together across their own cultural and language diversity into a place where they can study, but also beyond that, into their building of a region that's more cohesive. The boys' dormitory dates to 1987. It's always been a boarding school for boys. Girls live in the neighborhoods with families where they stay as guests and sponsor families. This building was originally built as a chapel, but now it's a student center. It was refurbished with some money from the Chinese government some years ago. And the back half of it, just over last summer, became a new computer center, which the Australian government funded. And that's a huge step forward for the school, to have a room with 28 computers, all networked and linked and secure. The emigration out of Micronesia is bigger than the very high birth rate. So the population here is declining despite the high birth rate. And that leaves a question of, what happens in these islands in the future? Whether our own graduates come back and serve here or stay abroad is a significant question for us in terms of our own mission and what we want to encourage. We certainly would like more of them to come back and teach here, for starters. We have a few students who've graduated and gone on to the U.S. Naval Academy or the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. We have a few students studying on full scholarship at Sophia University in Japan, another Jesuit school. And this is our wall of Gates Scholars. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation ran a big scholarship program for 20,000 students that ended just 2 years ago. And over the course of the years it ran, we had quite a few. You know, you'd be surprised how much they read that we read. You know, there was a big project recently about Anne Frank, Diary of Anne Frank. You have The Heart of Darkness here. Lots of familiar things from our days. Might be Brave New World.
How many kids total here?
We have 175 students, about 100 boys and 75 girls. We've got Chuuk here, we've got Korea, we've got Kosrae, Honpei.
Well, everybody seems really happy here. That must be good. You guys like this school, or what's...
No, we love it. Love it.
My name is Chloe Arnold. I'm a senior. The mission of Xavier High School is to educate students to become competent, conscientious, and compassionate leaders whose lives are guided by the Christian call of service.
And what does that mean to you?
It means to be men and women for others, to know what's right and what's wrong.
My first year here, I had a hard time speaking it because I didn't know how to. My first language was Kushan, and I think my first time learning English was coming here. Yeah, it's also one reason why I love this place, because of the academics.
It's really the goal here is to help them go somewhere, if you will, with their life, but to do it with a purposeful way and in a way that's unselfish, that benefits not only their own families and their own countries, but the whole region. Miss Maria Moreno is our teacher from Mexico this year. She's teaching in the science department and is the person who introduced salsa into cultural days.
Yeah.
You're from Mexico?
Yes.
What part?
Mexico City.
Oh, nice.
Grew up in Cuernavaca, but was born in Mexico City. And I've been teaching at Xavier for 1 year now. I've been teaching science, physics, and biology, and I will be teaching next year as well. I just love to be here, get to know the culture of these Pacific islands. So much culture, so many traditions that we don't even know about, so exploring really draws me into being here and staying and working with the students for 1 more year.
The road from town up to the school is notoriously bad. It's notoriously bumpy. The weather frequently washes out any repairs that have been made. And our buses have paid the toll this year. 3 of our 4 school buses are no longer functioning at this point, 3/4 of the way through the school year. So we're in the middle of a big fundraising campaign to try to replace some of them. In the meantime, kids are going in pickup trucks and in one flatbed that we call the pig pen that kids ride in every day. And if it's raining, sometimes they get pretty wet by the time they get to school.
Sadly, it was time for us to leave this warm place and the island of Chuuk, the most unique of all our destinations, and head to our final compact country, Palau.